to another episode of the P&P Show. Happy Thanksgiving. As the day of recording, Thanksgiving was yesterday, but still happy Thanksgiving to all of you. Hope you had a good day. That takes us to our recap from week 12. So, starting off with the most significant game to start here.
Well,
Alabama beats Arkansas.
Alabama beats Arkansas, but
By
they only beat
touchdown.
by a touchdown. Arkansas, as we have said throughout the season, has been a much improved team, but I really expected better from Alabama. And when we talk about the national championship playoff ratings, we'll see that did have an impact this week.
Right.
The next game,
Oregon falls to Utah by a final score of 38-7.
Yes, it was a whooping, and certainly that takes Oregon out of the conversation for the national championship.
Right. Ohio State crushes Michigan State 56-7.
The same is true with respect to this game. This was a signature win by the Ohio State Buckeyes,
and they are legit now. That we realize
they are legit, especially especially in light of Oregon's loss, which means that whatever happened earlier in the season, it was a fluke. Oregon is not for real. Ohio State has gotten better. Oregon has regressed, and therefore Ohio State, as we will see, certainly deserves to be in the consideration for the national championship.
Right. One of the better teams we saw blowing at a ranked team. Wow. Cincinnati takes down SMU handily. Michigan beats Maryland handily. Notre Dame crushes Georgia Tech in their third straight game without allowing a touchdown by a final score 55-0.
Yes, Notre Dame is definitely trying to make a statement here as the season closes out. And we'll talk about what they're doing this weekend. They shouldn't have a problem, but they better show up. I still think even with the outstanding performance this week, they're not going to penetrate the top four. But we'll talk about
some help.
Yeah, they need some help.
We'll talk about that. Oklahoma State takes down Texas Tech. Clemson, unranked, takes down Wake Forest. Wasn't even close. Where is that? Coming out of the blue, 48-27.
Clemson's been a strange team this year. They're 8-3, or at least they were going into. I guess this is the record after the game. 8-3. Wake Forest 9-2. Wake Forest having a decent season, but Clemson waking up and starting to play some football.
Right, and Notre Dame has to play Clemson the next 2 years and Ohio State the next 2 years. So. Yeah, Notre Dame, most underrated team ever, but we're not gonna go there with that one.
Okay, I'm looking down the list here. I'm not seeing anything all that significant. So
I mean, Oklahoma beat Iowa State 28-21. Not really anything.
No, not really.
Big. Yeah, no. Pretty calm week for college football.
Yep. Much as expected. The big games had some surprises, but the schedule after the big games is pretty much as anticipated. So I think it's time to move over to
week 13. It's closing down on us, folks. The season is closing down. Currently on recap for the last 2 days of college football, Ole Miss, Thanksgiving Day game, wins the Egg Bowl by 10 points, 31-21. Only significant game from yesterday or Tuesday. That takes us to today, Friday. Not very many significant games. There are 6 games currently live at the time of recording at 1:55 on Friday. There's only two ranked teams playing live right now. San Diego State and Iowa, both teams not in playoff contention, and they're all playing teams that are unranked. So they don't matter for much, and nothing else really significant happens today. But TCU plays today, so that's why we're going to talk about that really quickly. TCU or Iowa State?
Well, the Frogs have had an interesting season, but I think Ohio State has too much. Where are they playing?
Iowa State, and it's at Iowa State, not Ohio State. Ohio State plays Michigan.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with Iowa State.
Me as well. Frogs, feel bad for them, but North Carolina plays NC State. That might be interesting, but it's not on our list. But
both teams have played well at times, but they haven't necessarily been consistent throughout the season. We saw Notre Dame play North Carolina, and it was close for a while, but Notre Dame pulled away. I think NC State, though, is probably the better team at this point. I'm going to go with NC State.
Me as well. But it's not on our list. So our first official game here, we have number 2 Ohio State at number 5 Michigan. Who do you got?
I'm going to have reluctantly, I'm going to have to go with Ohio State. I know they're playing away up in the big house in Ann Arbor, which is a very impressive stadium, by the way. I saw a Notre Dame Michigan game up there a long time ago, before you were even with us. And Michigan won, not by a big margin, but they did win. So I'm going to go with I'm going to go against the home field advantage here, and I'm going to pick Ohio State to win this game.
I'm also going to go with Ohio State coming off a huge win to Michigan State. They proved that they are a good team, which I did not have faith in them. I will be honest. And it pains me. We got to go with Ohio State in this one. They are going to finish the season at number 2, is my prediction, unless something crazy does happen. For example, Alabama crushes Georgia, Alabama even beats Georgia in the SEC title game. But my prediction, Ohio State finishes at number 2, with Georgia at 1. Now, 3 and 4 we'll have to talk about, so we'll get there. Moving on to our next game.
Alabama plays Auburn. They play at Auburn. Auburn's had an up and down season. Alabama sort of shows up, and whenever they need to score the points they need to win the game, they do that. Except at Texas A&M, where they slept at the switch too long. But Alabama should win this one. I think they will win this one. They do have some trouble winning at Auburn. Home field advantage is a factor there, but they need to wake up and they need to show that they're for real. Mm-hmm. And the idea of winning by 3 points or winning by a touchdown isn't going to help them any. So they have to go out there. If they could stomp Auburn, that would be very much in their best interest in terms of the playoffs.
Right. I agree with everything that you said there. That's why I am going to go with Bama. But if Auburn makes it close, that's not good for Alabama. They need a blowout win here. And we'll tell you why in a minute here. But, yeah, this is a significant game for Alabama. Next game, Oregon State versus Oregon. This will be interesting. I'm going to go with Oregon State. Oregon has been really not good lately. They lost to Stanford. They lost to Utah. Oregon State's a solid team this year. They have a record of 7-4. Their losses come to Colorado, Cal, and Purdue. Not a bad resume. They beat Hawaii, Idaho. Was not sure on that one. USC, Washington, and Utah. And they also lost to Washington State. And then they beat Utah, who Oregon lost to. And then they've also beat Stanford and Arizona State. The Beavers they're good. So that's why
the Beavers are not necessarily consistent. As you go through the results for the season, there's certain games there that they shouldn't have won, and other games that they should have won that they lost. But I think after the spanking Oregon took last week, which essentially eliminates them from national championship contention, they're going to be playing a little flat. They are playing at Oregon. I think it'll be a good game, but I'm going with Oregon State.
I'm going with Oregon State as well. They've been a solid team all year, like I said. They're pretty good. Oregon has been shaky. That's why I'm going to go with the Beavs. Okay, that's a good game, though. Moving forward, we have Penn State facing off against Michigan State. Two teams that have been shaky. Penn State's better than I think their record shows. Lost to a good Iowa team at the time. They were ranked number 3. They lost to Ohio State, which is fair. And they've lost to Michigan. So their losses come to, and then they lost to Illinois. Well, there you go. But that game went to what, like 9 overtimes? So.
Right. And the two games to look at are Penn State versus Michigan and Penn State versus Ohio State. And they played Ohio State very close, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got the score there?
Yes. 33-24.
Okay, that's not
9
bad.
points. Not bad.
And how about Penn State and Michigan?
Michigan 21-17.
Yeah, very close games. So they do have a decent team against the better teams in the Big Ten. That Michigan State-Michigan game was just incredible. If that Michigan State team shows up, they're going to beat Penn State, and it's not going to be all that close. But if the team that lost to Ohio State shows up, it's going to be a hell of a game. I'm going with Michigan State just because they're at home, just because they have to feel they were embarrassed last week when they had hoped to play a good game. I think they're going to come back and try to get a signature win here. I'm going with the Spartans.
I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions on this one. I know. Michigan State, your momentum has to be through the window. You lost to Purdue, and then you beat Maryland, and that's like, okay. And then you lose to and then you lose to Ohio State. So you're coming off of a win against Michigan, but then you're losing to Purdue and Ohio State. Neither of those games were particularly close. Purdue, they lost 40-29. That's why I'm going to go with the Nittany Lions on this one. I just feel like they have a better momentum. They are coming off of a win against Rutgers and then a loss to Michigan. But then they beat Maryland. They had a 3-game losing streak for a while. They're Iowa, Illinois, Ohio State. And they started off the season with 5 wins. Then that 3-game losing streak, a win, a loss, and a win. So, I got to go with the Nittany Lions on this one.
All right. Well, it's always good when you and I pick opposite because then we have something to talk about, right?
Right. Next game, Oklahoma versus Oklahoma State. This is a good game. I'm going to go with the Cowboys.
Yeah, Oklahoma has been a weird team. They
were like ranked number 3 for the longest time.
Right. They were playing well. That win they had against Texas was a signature win. But then they've lost some games they definitely shouldn't have. Who did they lose to?
Who?
Oklahoma.
Oh, right. They lost to Baylor.
Okay. And Baylor got beat by the Frogs. So
Right. That's the only team they've lost to, surprisingly. But they almost lost to Texas. They almost lost to West Virginia. They almost lost to Nebraska. They beat TCU, but with a W, Western Carolina. Their logo looks the same as well as Grand Canyon. Their logo also looks like TCU's logo. They beat them 76-0, but they almost lost to Kansas State. They beat TCU pretty handily. They almost lost to Kansas.
Yeah.
So
they've been up and down. They've been shaky. They've had a quarterback controversy out there. I don't know whether that's been resolved or not. The Cowboys what's their record?
The Cowboys, I thought I've lost one game, but I can fact check that for you. 10-1, just like the Irish.
All right.
Their one loss coming to Iowa State.
A good team.
Solid. They beat Baylor, they beat Texas, and they beat Kansas State by way more than OU did.
Well, I'm going with the Frogs on this one.
I don't know where you're
going with the Cowboys on that one.
I'm also going to go with the Cowboys.
All right.
Fair enough. Next game.
All right.
Notre Dame facing off against Stanford.
Well, if I'm Brian Kelly, I'm thinking I'm a long shot to get in this championship. I need some help, as you indicated earlier.
Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute, but just pick who you're going to say.
I am not going to. I'm not going to have any chance at all unless I embarrass the Stanford team, like I did Georgia Tech last week. So if they expect to be playing at the highest level in the postseason bowl competition, they have to beat Stanford handily. And if it's a close game, forget about it. I think they're motivated. I think they've been playing better football as the season's gone on. And so therefore, in addition to it being my alma mater, I'm going with the Irish to win big today in California over the Stanford Cardinal, whatever that is. It's not a Cardinal, it's just a Cardinal. And they're
not the Cardinals, just the Cardinal.
Just the Cardinal, yes. And they're
I've always wondered what's up with that.
And their mascot is a pine tree.
It's a pine.
Yeah, really.
We gotta pull a picture of that. Hold up. We are going to show this on screen just because, and it's not like he has a name either. It's called the Stanford tree. Let's get some pictures up here. Hold up. This is great. Yeah.
Yeah, this is really. There you go. That one you just had up was interesting. Yeah, come on. Give me a break.
Get a real mascot. Our mascot's cool. A real person.
Yeah.
All right. And we have one final game. BYU facing off against USC. Yeah.
USC has more or less already packed up their equipment and put it in storage for next year. We don't know who their coach is going to be. They're going to have a new coach next year. They've been beaten by a number of schools in the Pac-12, and I'm sure they don't want to embarrass themselves, but BYU should take them. Where are they playing?
It's at USC.
In the Coliseum. Well, all right. I'm still
going to go with BYU. I mean.
Yeah, whenever Southern Cal loses, it's a good day, and so therefore I'm going with BYU.
BYU is a better team, too. USC is horrible. Well, they're not horrible, but they're 4-6.
Horrible. Yeah,
and BYU is 9-2.
Yeah. So, yeah, no way.
No. Definitely going to go with the
Cougars.
Yes.
The Cougars of BYU.
And I'm just
Okay.
seeing this now on ESPN 6 hours ago. USF gets some nice new uniforms. There's a picture here. They're nice. But
Well,
USF is not good, so when they're playing makes up for their that didn't make it. When their uniforms make up for their playing, we'll see about that. But all right, so now let's talk about the playoff picture.
Let's talk about the playoff picture.
Okay, so the top six currently.
Yes, let's run down the top six.
Number one, this is just the official top six. We're not talking about our personal top six yet.
Right.
Number one, we have Georgia. Number two is Ohio State. Number three is Alabama. And then coming in at number four is Cincinnati. Number five, Michigan. Number six, Notre Dame. Number seven, Oklahoma State. And then coming in at eight, I'm not sure. Hold on.
7 and 8 are already out of the discussion.
Out of the playoff picture. So we'll just stop at 7, being Oklahoma State, because they have as much of a chance as Notre Dame does, because they're pretty much identical if we're gonna go there. So
yeah. All right.
Okay.
Well, I think Georgia is a shoo-in, whether or not they beat Alabama in the SEC championship. They've been more consistent. I don't think they've had any really close games. They haven't lost any games. And quite frankly, although I'm pulling for Bama to win the SEC, I think that the best bet to run the table in the conference is Georgia. So I think at the end of the season, they're going to be number one. Now, all right, so we have OSU and Alabama coming in at 2 and 3. OSU they have a tough game that they could lose.
I think they'll win it, though. I think they're sealed where they are.
I think they'll win, and then they have the Big Ten championship, and I think we talked about this last night. If if everything remains the same as it is right now, it's going to be Wisconsin.
Yeah.
And Ohio State's already played Wisconsin?
I don't know.
Take a look.
They've played, if it tells me. Okay, here's the rundown of all the teams they've played. Minnesota, Oregon, Tulsa, Akron, Rutgers, Maryland, Indiana, Penn State, Nebraska, Purdue, Michigan State, Michigan. No Wisconsin.
All right. But if you look back to the Notre Dame Wisconsin game, that wasn't Wisconsin.
It was close until the fourth quarter.
Right. But still, there is no way Wisconsin is going to beat Ohio State.
No.
Unless Ohio State gets lost and doesn't show up at the stadium. So therefore, they're going to run the table. And I believe at the end of the season, they'll be number 2. Now, the next is interesting because we have
Alabama
and Cincinnati.
Right. So this is interesting.
Alabama will win the Western Division by beating Auburn today. Then they have the big game against Georgia, and that's going to be a great game. I don't think anybody's going to blow anybody else out. It's going to go right down to the end, and Alabama has the talent to win that game. They just
Can you tell me this? If Alabama loses that game, which I think they will, unfortunately, I'm rooting for them though. Well, actually, I don't know if I am rooting for them because when we talk about Notre Dame, we'll get there. But anyway, if they lose that game, are they still in the top 4?
Depends on. It depends on. You mean today's game against Auburn, or the?
You mean tomorrow's game? First of all, it's Friday.
Yeah,
let's get that straight.
The SEC championship game.
In the SEC championship game. Well, first of all, if they lose against Auburn, they're out. If they lose against Georgia in the SEC championship, which is we're assuming that's where they're going to get, do they stay in the top 4? Assuming that they beat Auburn.
I think it's going to depend upon the outcome of the Georgia game, not only in terms of who wins and who loses, but how close it is. If it's close, it goes down. If it goes down to the very end in the fourth quarter before a winner is determined, Alabama's in.
Okay.
All right.
But it does depend on how they do this week against Auburn.
Well,
If
yeah,
they win by 3 points and then lose against Georgia by more than
right.
10,
Well,
they're out.
Right. The game tomorrow is not irrelevant.
No.
I think it will count on how they win. If they win big, then they raise their stock. If they win close, then it becomes questionable.
So,
all right, so
Cincinnati. I think at the end of the day, Cincinnati's in. I think they'll take the 3 spot if Alabama loses, which I'm guessing is what's going to happen. And I don't think it'll be the down of the wire, but it will be a good game, which is why I think Alabama might move to number 5 in front of Oklahoma State at the end of the day. I think Michigan, when they lose to Ohio State, they'll be knocked out. They'll be out of the conversation.
They're out. They have to.
Notre Dame will take their place with a win against Stanford. And then if Alabama gets knocked out, then I think Notre Dame takes the place of where Cincinnati was. I think Notre Dame will, at the end of the day, move into number 4. Cincinnati will be 3. Ohio State at 2. Georgia at 1.
Long shot.
But I think it'll happen.
This has been interesting from the perspective of Notre Dame, because Notre Dame has only lost to Cincinnati close.
Right, and they're undefeated. Cincinnati is.
Cincinnati's undefeated?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So they lost very close. But what really has hurt them this season is there's been too many close games. The Miami game, the Florida State game, what other game did Virginia Tech? Now these teams are all nothing to write home about, but yet Notre Dame had to go down to the wire to beat them, and that's what really is going to be a factor here. I think Notre Dame has gotten better because they finally figured out during the course of the season what the right mix is between Jack Cohen and Tyler Buchner. And also, I think the running game has improved, and the defense has really improved. Notre Dame's defense has really started to come together. You have to remember that the Cincinnati defensive coordinator came over to Notre Dame and put in a completely different system. And I think it took a while for the players to learn and adjust to that system, but now they have it down.
Right, because they haven't given up a touchdown in the last 3 games.
Right.
And that's huge for Notre Dame, because I don't think they'd have any chance at all without that. They have proved themselves so well. Another thing Notre Dame needs, which is questionable, the Big 12 championship. Because if Oklahoma State wins that game, they could move ahead of Notre Dame with a Big 12 championship. Well, Oklahoma with a win, I don't know if they'll go ahead of Notre Dame. It's questionable.
Well, we'll see. But it's going to be interesting going into the end of the season with respect to who's going to end up in the top 4. I think Notre Dame they'll win out.
Yes.
And Michigan's going to lose tomorrow, so their season's over.
Yeah, they won't make the Big 12.
Cincinnati. Who would they play?
In what? In their championship?
Conference championship.
I think it would be Houston.
Have they played them already?
I don't know. Let me look. It's showing me basketball. Football.
Yeah.
All right. They have they played them last year. That does not help. They played them last year and beat them 38-10, but Houston was not as good last year.
What's Houston's record right now?
Houston right now is 10-1.
Okay, wow. Well, this could be more interesting than I anticipated.
Right.
So Cincinnati doesn't have a walkover to the end of the season here. They'll win tomorrow, and then it'll be an interesting game for the conference championship. If Cincinnati loses, Notre Dame slides right up. So
Right.
although Bearcats, I like the nickname. Where are we at? Bearcats, because I got my little Bearcat right here. Come on. See my little Bearcat there? All right, so I like Bearcats, but in this case,
Ooh.
very happy to see them lose in the conference championship.
Yes.
So
And then we can bear to have an Alabama win, or
Okay.
we can bear to have Alabama stay in there, because if Cincinnati loses to Houston, we'll take that. Notre Dame needs to win. And if they can prevent Stanford from getting a touchdown, we'll take that any day. Stanford just lost to Cal. Not Southern California.
Yeah.
So if we can go a fourth straight game without giving up a touchdown, oh yeah, our chances are looking.
Well, let's hope. Sometimes that end of the game out in California, they play Southern Cal and Stanford alternatively for the last game of the year. Notre Dame, for some reason, excuse me, doesn't play its best football. So let's just hope that they can, number one, keep the score low by Stanford. Number two, score a lot of points against Stanford. Then they're well positioned to take advantage of anything that happens up above that's in their favor. Otherwise, if they lose to Stanford, forget about it. And if it's close and there's anything going on up on top that might have affected their status should they have won, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt on that. And so therefore, they're out of the picture. But right now, I do agree that Georgia, Ohio State, and Alabama are probably a lock, unless the bottom falls out somewhere.
I don't know about Alabama being lock. Because if they lose.
Yeah, if they lose it, right.
It would be interesting. We'd have to see.
Certainly if they lose to Auburn, they're out.
Well, even if they lose to Georgia.
If they lose to Georgia but lose close, then
we'll have to see if it's close. We'll have to see.
Right. Michigan's going to be out after tomorrow. Cincinnati, do they play tomorrow?
They play Eastern Carolina.
Oh, well, that's not going to be much of a game for them.
Well, if it's anywhere close, well, then that could make it interesting.
Yeah, I don't.
Because even with a win in their conference title game, well, I guess if it's coming to Houston.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so that's the picture. It's going to be interesting going into the last week here.
This was a good race.
It's a good race, and
this week is not that much of a deciding factor because the games are pretty much set on what's going to happen. We can pretty much predict what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So it's the conference championship championships.
Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, and Cincinnati should win.
Yes. Notre Dame should win. Michigan won't.
Michigan won't. Notre Dame should
Oklahoma State will. Whoever they play, but I'm sure.
Yeah, they would need a lot of help.
Right. They need the whole world to implode.
Right.
They play Oklahoma tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh.
So and they still got a conference game, right? They still got a conference championship game.
So they have a regular season game and then the conference championship.
Right.
So basically, what Notre Dame wants to happen typically here, Oklahoma wins one of them, Oklahoma State wins one of them. That makes them both 10-2. That way they can't go ahead of Notre Dame.
Well, it's going to be very interesting the next couple of weeks.
We'll have to see. But we've covered pretty much everything we can cover.
We have covered everything we can cover. We're all ready for those games tomorrow. And we'll look forward to next week because it'll be even more interesting than this week. It will.
Thank you for watching this week. It should be a good race coming down to the finish. So until next week, in which our picture may be completely different because I'm sure there'll be some crazy upset and some crazy thing to happen that messes up everything. So long, everybody.
Roll Tide, go Irish.
Step in the kitchen. Let's go.
That time his shot rejected by Deontay Johnson.